we don't want to waste much of the time now. So basically, we will have a speaker who's going to take the session on upskilling and reskilling. So before that, I just wanted to set a few ground rules. Basically, so we have two windows here. So one is a chat window and a Q&A window. So all the confirmations, maybe if she's trying to share the screen, why is there any confirmation other than that? Maybe we can use the chat window. And specifically, if you have any questions related to today's session, it'll be helpful for the speaker to go through the question and answer section. So we would ask you to, leave your questions in the question and answer window. Okay. So other than that, I think Aditi is the L&D leader with more than 15 years. I think she is in the industry. So I will ask her to do a quick introduction, and from there, I think we'll ask her to take over the session. So over to you, Aditi.
Thank you, Naveen. And hello and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining in today. I'll give a quick introduction of myself and then we'll begin with the agenda for today. So I have over 15 years of experience in organization development and learning and development, etc. I've also set up HR for various startups beginning from scratch, right from, where there was absolutely no trace of any HR or any form of even maintaining employee databases to building in a robust system. Apart from that, I'm also a soft skills trainer. I have done trainings on interviewing skills, communication skills, team building, transitioning from campus to corporates, etc. And recently, I have won the Future Ready Leadership in L&D Award from HRAI. And today, through this webinar, I hope I am able to share with all of you my understanding on upskilling and reskilling. And hopefully, there will be some amount of good takeaways during this discussion. With that, I move on to what's in the agenda for today. So what I've tried to do here is break up the whole session into various sections. We begin with understanding upskilling and reskilling. Then we move on to what are the benefits of upskilling and reskilling and what kind of challenges do employees and corporates face. I also have some case studies and success stories with you. Due to the short time, I wouldn't be discussing all the case studies in details here, but I have shared a detailed document with Vinod and Naveen, which will be shared with you after the presentation. And then we also have a framework which will be more like if you need to apply a particular strategy for upskilling and reskilling, how to go about it. Now let's deep dive. Understanding upskilling and reskilling. Now, by 2030, it's estimated that by around 85 million of jobs will be replaced or altered due to the changes in how humans and machines divide tasks. Now, what these technological changes are going to do is it's going to bring in a lot of disruption in the way the current workplace is approached, how currently work is being approached. But at the same time that these technological changes are going to bring in a disruption, they are also expected to bring in at least 97 million new roles as per the World Economic Forum. However, this will also need a lot of new skills that the current workforce is required to be upskilling themselves from. On an average, we can expect that about 2/5 of the existing skill sets will be transformed or will get outdated by the 2025 to 2030 period. Automation, AI, and HR software are transforming the way employees interact with learning and development opportunities as well. While some of the skills like analytical thinking, AI, and big data networks and cybersecurity are going to be on high demand, learning into these roles, not every one of us are really applying all of these particular technologies into these roles. So learning is going and upskilling ourselves is going to be of profound importance. Now, the current labor market is changing rapidly due to technological advancements, as I said. Now, to be able to cope up with this, I cannot stress more on the fact that an agile workforce and an adaptable workforce and a workforce which is constantly learning and getting itself future ready is very, very important. Now, two methods to do this again is upskilling and reskilling. Now, let's look into what is upskilling and reskilling briefly. I'm sure all of us would know this, but I'll just deep dive a little bit into this. Now, the process of improving the workforce's present skills to meet demands both now and in the future is known as upskilling. Upskilling might also consist of soft talents that can be owned and tailored to close skill shortages in the workforce. For instance, in remote and hybrid work situations, emotional intelligence can be developed as a skill for mid level managers or team leads. Upskilling improves the performances in the current role as well as makes the workforce ready for the future. However, if a particular role is going redundant or the nature of the role is changing entirely is when we look at reskilling the workforce. So, and according to the World Economic Forum, the technological developments will need the reskilling of at least 50% of the current workforce. And that is where, you know, the requirement for the current L&D world is required to be stepping up and meeting the demands of the coming times. Now, let's talk about the benefits of upskilling and reskilling. The skill building has always been a priority throughout the history of the technological advances ever since whether it's been the manufacturing industry or whether it's been the IT industry right from the beginning. There's always been a lot of training programs and the necessitation to learn a new skills and everything has been there. But with the rise of AI, the stakes are raising. We are now in what is often called the fourth industrial revolution, a time in which advances in technologies are changing how we work. Now, I already said that, the 50% of the workforce needs to be reskilled. But the good news also is the fact that at least 69 million new roles are going to be created because of these technological advancements. And that's not very far. That's in the next 5 to 10 years of time frame. Now, that's the reason why we need to be able to cope up with the times. There is an absolute requirement of keeping up with the times. And there are some reasons why reskilling and upskillings are essential. One is to keep up with the technological advances. The employees need to learn new skills and remain effective in their roles. For example, if you are an HR, specifically somebody is an HR operations person, so far Excel sheets or basic HRMS has been the way to support the particular role or function. But if the person but with the changing times, there's a lot of implementation of AI, there's been a lot of implementation of smart predictive analytics that is coming in, which helps HR operations do their job much more effectively. And to be able to cope up with the meeting demands of how data is being shared, analyzed, and interpreted in an HR operations role, keeping up with the times and to keeping up with the technological advances is important. Now, that's just an example. I'm sure every other role has an example like this. Improving job satisfaction and retention is again one of the reasons why reskilling and upskilling is essential. To be able to give employees justified growth opportunities in the coming days, it's important that we help them with their job satisfaction. We help them learn and advance so that they are able to keep on growing in their roles and have a continued job satisfaction, and thereby help organizations retain the given current workforce. Supporting career growth again by offering reskilling and upskilling opportunities, companies help employees reach their full potential and prepare for new roles either within their current area or in a different part of the organization. And the last but not the least, and probably the most important today, is building a flexible workforce. To be able to have an agile workforce, a workforce which is ready to cope up with whatever business requirements, changing business requirements are coming in, a workforce which is skilled and trained to do different kind of roles that are coming in, which is able to take on the technological disruption. It's very important for us to have a flexible workforce. And again, that can be achieved by a proper reskilling or upskilling programs. Now, if you're wondering when to upskill versus when to reskill, these are certain basic things that we need to keep in mind. If a job role is evolving, for example, a role was particularly manual or dependent on Excel files, etc., but then there's been a lot of automation in the role, there's been a lot of tech involvement in the role, those kind of roles. Or if there are employees who are high potential talents in the organization and they can take up different roles or additional responsibilities, in those situations, upskilling works. However, if there is a complete role redundancy due to the investment in technology by the organization, all the an entire organization is going through a shift and it requires a lot of internal mobility in order to restructure the organization and redistribute the workforce. In those situations, reskilling comes into the picture. And in a situation like major digital transformation, for example, there's this particular organization which was into insurance, and a lot of insurance processing, claims processing was happening manually. However, the organization decided to, move tech, and the entire organization is moving onto a tech-based platform where claims settlement and everything is happening through automated processes, through systems, without much of a manual intervention. That's kind of a major digital transformation. And in those situations, often you need to do both. You need to upskill certain set of employees and you need to also reskill certain set of employees. Now, to build a successful upskilling program, some of the things that we need to keep in mind is prioritize experiential learning. Even the most compelling L&D content won't be enough for employees to fully understand new concepts. If you want your people to develop advanced level expertise, it's best to pair your learning curriculum with hands-on development opportunities like projects and jigs. Experiential learning on the job as you as you start taking up projects and learn is of supreme importance if you want your learning interventions to show results quickly. Next is ensure that everyone can participate. We cannot say that my upskilling program is only going to be for a particular section of employees or a particular set of roles and the rest of the organization need not go through it again. It has to be an org-wide initiative for the program to be successful, B, to be able to cater to the changing business needs. Align skill building with business needs. It's very, very important that if you want to maximize your upskilling program's impact, make sure your people are developing skills and competencies that are relevant to the business needs. Now, a very simple example is in a car manufacturing industry, a lot of organizations will be doing a lot of different kind of technological advancements. There's and depending on the kind of car that is being built. For example, when you're building in a sports car or when you're building in a a dump truck or an SUV or any of those high rider cars, the kind of equipments that will be required will be different versus what is being built for a regular city mover. Now, if my employees are skilled at making a sports car, but do not know the nuances of what exactly is required in a city mover or into a family mover, then there's a problem that I'm not addressing. I'm actually not aligning my employee skill sets with exact the requirement of the business. So I'm putting this in a very layman terminology for you, in a very as basic as I can make, but I hope you get the fact that the core here that I'm trying to tell here is that every time whenever you are looking into an upskilling or reskilling program, ensure that you first look into what is your changing business needs, where do you see your business coming up in the next 5 or 10 years, and accordingly build the skill sets. Understand that skills needs will be changing. Too many leaders fall into the trap of viewing skills as an inventory challenge. We usually look at what is required currently, what are we doing currently, whether the employees have the required skill sets to do their roles right now. But this mindset doesn't hold good any up more in the dynamic post-industrial era of work. We really need to also start looking at current and future. Skills will change, requirements will change. There's a lot of disruption that automation and AI is bringing in. The very most imperative thing to do here will be to have an agile workforce ready to be trained and ready to take up new challenges as the roles evolve. With at the same pace, our skill sets will also need to be evolving. Now, there are certain challenges that organizations and employees face at the same time when they go through upskilling and reskilling. Now, some of the challenges for the organizations are skill gap identification, and that's one of the biggest hurdles, and that is to accurately assess what skills our employees have currently, what skills are required in the future, and where do they stand and where's the gap. So, to be able to mitigate this, organizations must continuously analyze workforce trends and anticipate future demands to implement effective programs. Resource allocation. Training programs require significant amount of time, money, and technology investments. Organizations must balance skill development costs with immediate business priorities while ensuring training effectiveness. If my future requirement and the spend on my training and upskilling programs is not aligned with each other, there's a huge chance that I might end up over investing or under investing, and the programs do not see enough value. There's also going to be a lot of employee resistance that organizations face due to, and that's simply driven by the fear of change or job insecurity, etc., or even a lack of confidence in their ability to learn. So, and to be able to mitigate this, clear communications, building in a culture of learning and development imbibed into the system is very important. Integration with business strategy, again, is one of the challenges here that I'm going to be discussing. Organizations often struggle to align the workforce and the training programs with long-term goals. The training programs in such situations can become fragmented, leading to skills that do not directly contribute to business growth. And to be able to mitigate this, the HR organization, the learning organization, and the business organization, everyone must work hand in hand in tandem to be able to ensure that the training needs or upskilling and reskilling programs are aligned with the business strategy. Measuring success is a challenge that organizations face. While we definitely say that, we are taking in feedback, we are looking at what were, employee measurabilities. What's important here to do is how much of the training learnings or how much of these interventions have actually helped somebody on the job. That measurement needs to come in. There are several ways to do it. There could be the fact you can do it through staggered feedback sessions. You can do it through direct feedback from the employees, or you can also do it through assigning tasks to the learners and which are directly going to be impacting the business, and assessing them against such tasks. So depending on what is it that each one of the organization has an aptitude for, because we need to ensure that we bring in effective methods of ensuring that the learning interventions are actually making sense and adding value. Now, for employees, the challenges are slightly different and much more from a personal lens compared to what it is from an organization's perspective. Many employees struggle to balance work responsibilities with learning new skills, and dedicated time to learn new skills is usually carved out to be lesser than expected or lesser than required. Such time constraints become a challenge. Second is learning curve and adaptability. Again, a lack of confidence or the to keep up with the pace of change. All of this become a lot of blockers in the way and how an employee approaches learning. Then the lack of clear career pathways. If an employee doesn't see a direct benefit to their career progression from whatever learning intervention is provided to them, they usually would not remain motivated enough, or they would not be interested enough in participating. Then, to be able to mitigate this, personalized learning effectiveness programs to be uh, to personalized career progression challenges, giving them a clear career pathways, all of that is very, very important. Access to resources again becomes challenges for employees. Now, not everybody will have equal learning opportunities. However, as an organization, it's very important for us to review what is it that we are able to provide with our learners, and how are we able to, most importantly, personalize the entire training. A lot of this can be achieved through talent marketplaces or through learning experience platforms where you which are able to you know personalize the entire content according to an learner's requirements, and they assess the learner's current knowledge. They look at the content, and then they personalize the learning overall delivery according to the gap that they have identified. So such experience platforms become the easiest way to mitigate the challenge of access to training resources. Motivation and engagement again by employees is tied to all of the above four challenges that we discussed here. If an employee does not see immediate benefits of the learning opportunity, does not see applicability of the entire learning intervention, does not see how it's going to benefit their career and how they are able to better contribute to the organization, it's very difficult to be able to motivate and engage the employees. Now, to be able to address these challenges, an organization needs to come across as a whole and mitigate them. There needs to be appropriate leadership support. There needs to be personalized learning paths. And I'm a strong believer in personalized learning paths, usage of learning experience platforms where contents get curated according to the requirements of each participant. And there's a lot of use of AI that comes in, and a strong culture of learning, upskilling, and reskilling that encourages continuous development. An employee must see the value that they are going to derive out of the overall program, not just in their contributions to their current role, but in their overall career development. And this can only be brought in only if we have clear communications, if we have a proper culture of learning in place, and we are able to help the employee get enough support in terms of their developmental or in their career paths. Now, one of the most effective ways to integrate all of these is to create a proper career pathing document or have a proper career pathing structure in place. Now, career pathing is actually nothing but the process by which employees create a plan for their career development within the organization. It's a structured way for employees to see potential career paths, identify the skills needed for each step, and understand how to achieve their career goals. Career pathing is beneficial because it offers clear developmental steps are defined, where and how the employee needs to progress, what kind of learnings do the employee needs to progress from point A to point B, or whether the employee wants to continue as an individual contributor, to move tracks into a managerial role, or do something completely different. Career pathing gives them a clear pathway and gives them an understanding of how does it go. And because it gives a clear in-depth understanding to the employees, there are personalized growth opportunities which are clearly visible to the employee once they are referencing to the overall career pathing process. Career pathing is also a great way to support internal mobility. I'd give you an example of Yardley Infotech, one of my previous organizations. There, what we used to do is every alternate year, there used to be a career fair where each department would come up and set up their stalls where employees can go around and understand what is being done in that department, what kind of skill sets are being utilized, get into an assessment of their current skill sets versus what's required in the that particular department. Will they be suitable if they apply for an internal job posting, or do they need to upskill themselves or reskill themselves to be able to move into that department if they are interested? So all of those assessments would be done in those stalls, and that is how internal agility, internal mobility would be highly supported in the organization. And we have seen way back in 2014-16 as well, there's been a lot of reskilling and upskilling that employees have willingly gone through because of these initiatives. Now I'll move on to some of the case studies here. Now, as I said previously, I'm not going to go into very in-depth details here, but I'll definitely take you through the summary of what exactly these programs are that I'm going to talk about. The detailed document will be shared with you by Naveen and Vinod at the end of this webinar. Now, Amazon has done a stupendous job of reskilling 300,000 employees so far. Amazon's program is known as Career Choice Program, and Career Choice is an education and training benefit for eligible employees. It empowers participants to develop skills for in-demand careers, whether inside Amazon or beyond. As of April 2025, Amazon has already been able to reskill and upskill 250,000 employees as part of the program since its inception in 2012. What Amazon covers is something which is very, amazing in terms of the way the support is being given to these employees. Amazon pays for 100% of the tuition for all the in-demand fields. Amazon gives flexible schedules where work hours can be adjusted to accommodate the class timings, and the programs are also able to offer virtual and on-campus learning options depending on an employee's ability to learn and comfort zones. Next one is Accenture's. Accenture's upskilling and reskilling ecosystem centers around its LearnVantage platform, which is backed by substantial investment and strategic acquisitions like the acquisition of Ascendient Learning and partnership with SAP to tailor to SAP led certifications. And then there are a lot of other curriculums that Accenture has been able to build in, which is known as, one of them is known as the Technology Quotient curriculum, and numbers are stupendous. Accenture has reached 637,000 employees and trained during as part of this program, with around 528,000 demonstrating proficiency in at least 10 to 12 of the core technologies that Accenture is expecting employees to be upskilled and reskilled in. Between April to May 2024 itself, Accenture logged around 13 million training hours across its global workforce. Huge numbers, a very successful program, and amazingly executed. Next is IBM's reskilling program known as the New Collar Jobs program. The term new collar jobs was coined by IBM's then CEO Ginny Rometty around late 2016 to describe evolving technology roles like cybersecurity analysts, cloud technicians, and app developers. Some of these programs have helped employees reskill and upskill into a lot of digital roles, which have actually gone a long way in ensuring that IBM stays on top of the game, even in a world which is currently being disrupted by a lot of automation and AI. IBM has not just stayed within the organization to be able to cater to the changing business needs and the technical needs, but IBM has also partnered with a lot of external agencies and has also taken reskilling and upskilling as part of their CSR initiatives. IBM has collaborated with India's Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship and has also collaborated with NASCOM Foundation to bring in a lot of reskilling, upskilling, and diploma experiences for the employees or for the freshers who are just out of college or who have probably done graduation and are interested to work in the tech world. Now, AT&T's upskilling program or upskilling journey is something that has, that actually talks about how far-sighted an organization needs to be able to continue being at a market leadership position or to be able to maintain and keep on improving their current stature in the job market. In 2013, AT&T recognized that over half of its workforce faced obsolescence amid digital shift. To counter this, the company launched a program known as Future Ready, committing about $1 billion into a multi-year effort to reskill employees in roles critical to its future, including cloud computing, data analytics, cybersecurity, and software development. By 2020, over 100,000 employees were retrained, enabling internal mobility into new technical roles and reducing the company's dependency on external hires. Even today, in recent years, AT&T has invested approximately $220 million annually in internal training programs, delivering nearly 20 million hours of learning per year. A humongous amount of time and energy is being spent by all of these organizations into learning, upskilling, reskilling. So with this, I hope that I've been able to give you an insight into what some of the large organizations and at what scale, upskilling or reskilling is happening at, in the industry as such. Now, for us to be able to implement upskilling and reskilling properly or create a proper program, we need to first be ready with our strategy. One is we need to, and to be able to have a strategy in place, it needs to follow these, be broken down into various stages. One is we need to ensure that the skill gap analysis is done and done regularly, map the future role requirements and map the current skill sets around those future role requirements. Look at where's the gap and design learning pathways to be able to address those gaps. Keep our learning pathways agile. Keep them to be part of a changing requirements. For example, if the business needs shift in order to be able to keep pace with the technical advancements in the coming years, then the learning programs also needs to be shifting equal at an equal speed. So learning pathways needs to be agile that way. Keep on encouraging internal mobility. That's our best bet instead of hiring from outside. Saves a lot of time, cost, and energy in terms of, to be able to ensure that your current workforce itself is reskilled and moved ahead. And ensure that we measure and optimize. Measurement, not just from an immediate feedback of training intervention perspective, but measurement of how exactly are these interventions able to make a real business impacts, the overall ROI based measurement. That's very important. And around these 4 or 5 basic frameworks or basic steps do we build these overall upskilling and reskilling strategy. There's a checklist that I have here. This too will be shared with you via Vinod. And any questions or anything, I have shared my email ID and my LinkedIn URL. Please feel free to get in touch. Now, some of the best practices that we discussed today are in this entire program are we need to involve middle managers in the planning process. If we do not involve the frontline managers, we are at risk of building in a strategy or a plan which doesn't really reflect what is required on the ground or what is exactly being looked into by the business. Our frontline managers talk to everybody, right from an individual contributor level to the leadership level in the organization. And these are the people sitting with the crucial information of what exactly is needed. Personalizing learning is very, very important. I cannot stress more, and I have already, emphasized a lot on the fact that usage of learning experience platforms, not just traditional LMS platform, is of paramount importance if we want to ensure that employees are growing and learning at the pace at which it is required, and they are able to meet the various changing business demands at the pace and speed at which are we require them to meet the demands. There needs to be a proper tracking in terms of these implementations. There needs to be a proper tracking of impact as well, just beyond completion of the training. How well are the learnings being implemented? Are the learnings being adapted into changing job roles? If they're based on feedback, based on how business needs are changing, if the job roles are changing, the learning content, the learning delivery itself also needs to be agile and keep on changing. Pitfalls, of course, against these best practices are ignoring the frontline managers. As I said, if we do ignore them, we are at a risk of not being in sync with the actual requirements of the business. No post-training role alignment absolutely devalues the overall learning intervention itself. If we are not able to implement what is being taught and why is it being taught. So if an employee goes back and continues doing the same old role and doesn't see a scope of implementing whatever has been taught in the session, then the overall value itself is lost. And one size fits all learning, again, goes back to the fact that personalized learning is important. One size fits all learning used to be very great in the 1990s when we would just identify training programs and then everybody would go and sit into a classroom and all of them are going through the same training content and same training methodologies. Worked will not work in the future because everybody is at a different skill level. Business requirements are changing. Fast learning is important. And most importantly, the coming generation or the new generation that's here is questioning a lot of facts that if I already know something, why do I have to sit into a training program and go through the entire thing to be able to know the next thing again? They are looking into every minute of theirs invested. They are looking into how is it giving them a proper ROI. So to wrap up, I would say the world of learning and development is changing rapidly, and so are business expectations. To be able to cope with the pace of disruption being brought about by technological advancements and AI, it's imperative for an organization to invest the right amount of time and right type and amount of resources towards upskilling and reskilling their workforce. And with this, I would thank you all for joining in. I will just stop sharing my screen now and look into the Q&A. Okay. Any questions? I don't see any questions on this chat window here yet, but any questions that are there, please post your questions here. We're open to taking them. Okay, I don't see any questions. Vinod, have you received any questions?
Yeah, Aditya, I think we have a question now from Sachin. Okay, I think it's in the chat window itself. Just now we have received the question. Can you have a check on that? Or if you want, I can read it out for you.
I found it. Okay. Okay, Sachi, disruption is happening at breakneck speed, but our company is actually adapting to anything. Absolutely, Sachi, companies are adapting. Some of the organizations are doing it at exactly the pace of the disruption, maybe slightly slower, but companies are quickly adapting. There are a lot of organizations which still need to realize that they need to really move up in space. But then, there are organizations which are also, for example, the examples that I showed you, like Amazon or IBM, or even in the insurance sector, Avivas or Axas of the world, they are literally moving very fast and keeping up with their times. So yes, disruption companies are adapting, but not everyone. Okay, Janvi wanted to know on one scenario of transformation initiatives you have handled in your previous organization, and how do we leverage the right tools considering we have so many tools out there in the market. So Janvi, I'll address your second question first, and then I'll move on to the scenario that you've asked about. So the tools that you need to identify are completely dependent on what exactly is needed. Now, there are so many tools out there. If you actually look at experience platforms, there's the Cornerstone Experience Platform, there's Degreed, and every one of them are more or less offering similar things or different capabilities. Now, look at what exactly is needed in your organization and what do you want to achieve out of the overall intervention. How much of personalization is going to be useful or not useful, and then you decide on which kind of tools to look at. Changing times, changing industries, everything will impact that. Tied to this answer is also my answer on one scenario of transformation initiatives. So this was with Falabella India. I'm not sure if there's somebody from Falabella today, but I just take an example here. Falabella, when COVID struck, Falabella. I'll just give you a brief background of Falabella before I actually talk about the challenge here. Falabella is a retail giant, the equivalent of Reliance in South Americas. They are a 150-year-old organization which has been operating successfully in legacy ways. Now, when COVID stuck, Falabella was still functioning in their legacy ways and still thinking or considering on how to, you know, go digital and start selling online. But COVID stuck and things needed to change fast, very fast. We needed to move away from legacy methodologies, selling from offline to selling online. Our online sales only used to constitute 10% of the overall market. We needed to move that to at least 90% sales happening through online. So this entire transformation was required to be achieved in a short period of 6 months if Falabella had to survive and keep making profits as they were making. And that's a disruption that we brought in. We required to bring in a lot of upskilling, a lot of reskilling happened. The technology arm that was sitting here in India needed to expand quickly, expand its capabilities quickly, and deliver quickly as well. A humongous task. We partnered with ThoughtWorks, and we were able to bring in this disruption. And by the end of those 6 months period, Falabella had already moved from 10% of their sales happening online to 60% of their sales happening online. Now, next, I'll move on to the next question. Which domain or sectors are these companies from? So various ones, Sachi, AXA or Aviva are in the insurance sector. They're moving a lot from manual based insurance processing or claims processing to a huge technological or automated processings. Then there's Amazon or Falabella, which are in the retail sector. There's IBM or AT&T in the IT and telecom sectors. So various ones are there. How do we really tackle, this is Minakshi's question, how do we really tackle situation where people are not willing to change or learn new skills or being adaptive because of any internal or external force, like the year of experience, the work they're doing is making sense as of now, etc. Would you be able to share any case study or example of a small or mid-level organization? Sure. So without naming the organization, Meenakshi, there's this organization which is mostly into the fintech domain. And employees have been with this organization for 10, 12 years by now. They have brought about a lot of changes in the fintech domain. They have seen the UPI revolution happening. But if you look at this very set of employees today, they are not willing to further develop, saying that because of whatever we have developed till so far, because of the way we have integrated AI, because of the way we have built softwares for various banks, etc., within a short period of 10 years we have already been able to list ourselves on the stock exchange. So we have been successful doing what we have been doing. Why do we need to disrupt or change? And to be able to ensure that these employees, this resistance is mitigated, and employees see a reason why, the organization has beautifully crafted an overall learning program where before they even go and introduce the learning program, they're actually doing awareness sessions with the employees where they are taking the employees through where is it needed, how is it needed. There's a lot of market data that's being shared with these employees into how their particular roles are shifting in the market itself. And even if they have to move out of the organization or continue growing in the organization, they will have to, change into the required roles, and they will need to upskill themselves. And this entire culture is brought in, bite-sized learnings are brought in. Instead of detailed learning programs, the organization has brought in bite-sized learnings, 1 hour bites, connect bites, webinars, a lot of smaller insights into what exactly is needed, and interventions are being done. And they have been able to break this resistance to a huge extent. Now, this might work in this particular scenario. There are certain other scenarios which will not, this may not work, but the core approach or strategy that always works, Meenakshi, is clear communications and ensuring that we make the value that is going to be derived out of it very clear and are able to showcase it. Sachi, what can we do if leadership is not buying into new learning formats? Sachi, data is your way with leadership. If an employee is, if the leadership is not, able to see the value out of it, you need to go with to the leadership with a lot of market data, and you need to go to the leadership with database of where do you stand as compared to your competitors, and showcase what some of the larger organizations are doing, so what some of the industry is doing, what kind of disruptions are happening. If you go with the thorough research, if you go with the thorough data, no leadership in the world will not say not say, we would not do this. If they see business values out of it, if you are able to show them the proper ROI out of it, every leadership understands that this is imperative for the organization. Okay, meetings, action items, share presentations. Okay. Yes, so right, Vinod. So what I have done here, everyone, is I have the presentation and the detailed case studies with all of you, and the strategy checklist that all the 3 documents will be shared with through you via Vinod. I have also shared my LinkedIn and my email ID coordinates here. So anything, any questions or any further discussions, please feel free to get in touch. I'm sure it's going to be a good discussion, knowing the fact that we are in a times when things are disrupting, and before we even think of what could be the next disruption, it's already there. So thank you everyone for joining in. Looking forward.
Hey, thanks, Aditi, and also thanks participants for joining in for this session. Hopefully, we will be coming up with new sessions again, and look forward for you all joining again. So thank you. Have a nice day ahead.
Thank you, Naveen.
Thanks, Aditi.